Alright, so, a bit unusually, for its second anniversary of the game, in September 2025, Square just decided, as I guess a showcase of good faith, to dump the entire section of Advent Children all in one go as the second anniversary event. Yeah, it was kinda lame.
Apologies to anyone who has Ever Crisis as their introduction to 7, but here's just a flipping spoiler of the entire epilogue to the game.
That being said, at the very least, I appreciate that they kept one of the better music tracks from Advent Children for the intro during the event. It really is fitting. And if you notice the background and the peppers, yeah, the background is the one from Sephiroth, so I wonder what it's supposed to mean.
I mean, Imatsu's still capable.
Anyway, so what should we expect? Well, a lot of costumes, as you can imagine, because a lot of people joked, this really would have felt like the emergency button that Square would have pressed, when they felt like the game was not making, all the cajillion money that they wanted to make, because they knew the Advent Children costume would have sold like hotcakes, nonetheless. So you'll be able to see. And to be fair, yes, they did get not all of them, but a good chunk of them. Not all of the costumes of the movie made into the game. Thank God Barrett's horrible white puffy jacket did not make it into the game, because
what, you didn't like him with the fishnets on under the jacket, Tio?
No. Barrett, he burnt it.
Yes, he just dumped it.
Just like he burned those resources at his oil rig factory in Advent Children.
Though surprisingly, neither Seed's costume came into the game. His relatively simple shirt. I guess they thought it looked too simple to be worth adding an extra banner onto it. And again, you have to always treat the rule of thumb of they cannot have too many costumes in the event, because remember, in order to obtain just one of them, the players will have to perform a good chunk of pulls from the weapon pools, because we are filling in spots on a check mark.
I keep forgetting Sid even has a different outfit in Advent Children.
Because, well,
even though it's...
That's a page of people joke that it's one of the easiest cosplay to make, because it's literally just a blue, petrol blue shirt. I think the jacket wrapped around his waist and his puffy pants. However, here's also another thing that they wanted to add. So yeah, here's Cloud's costume, which of course I got. I still really don't like the costume that Cloud got the Advent Children, but I know that it's famous enough to actually showcase at the very least. But here's also the other thing. They also added Adult Sephiroth playable. Mind you, it's not like they created a story section with it. They just were like, yeah, why not? And I love how completely not giving a shit he is in presenting his weapons. You'll be able to see more later.
So, assuming you roll him, is he like incredibly OP to play as, or do they actually balance him out?
He is, but remember, Jova, the characters are given to you for free. It's the equipment that you have to roll out for.
Oh, I get that, but I mean, given all the abilities we see him use when you can play as him, in scripted sections, does he at least have all his OP abilities?
Again, I just love it. He's like, yeah, here's the weapon. Fuck off. Leave me alone.
And again, kudos to them for being generous with the characters.
They also introduced this thing, the Memoria system. These are basically just JPEGs that you collect that are tied to these specific events. That basically are a badge that you collect, which greatly also enhances the stats of your playable characters, including some specific commemorative illustration like this one from Lisa Fujise. So that's pretty
nice. So, updates. I presume Ever Crisis is doing relatively well financially, since Square haven't
I don't keep track, but judging from the influx of content we're getting, people are speculating we're not too far off from the end one way or another, mostly because we're wrapping up most of story arcs at this point. Anyway, let's get to Advent Children. So, how is this structured? A lot of people wanted it to have the structure of the way the other games were actually represented, with the characters moving in a style similar to the OG game. Unfortunately, they kind of went the lazy route and just used clips from the movie to showcase. Now, on one hand, it is pretty neat that for a free game, I need to stress out, for a free game, they give you, even if it's a slightly abridged, a good chunk, at least more than half of a movie to see, and it's all the important part. Yes, they did cut off the stupid dilly-dally, shilly-shally / zuru-zuru part from Tifa, thank God. But they did have stuff like the premise, the recap, all the fight scenes are here, mind you, and the epilogue. So technically speaking, even if it's not the super complete edition of the movie, you can see it for free. And again, it's pretty neat that you can do that, but you can see that. And after this event, they actually bother to keep this section in the story section, instead of actually make it just temporary. So that's pretty neat. What's the problem? Probably, me and another Italian guy speculated on this, probably in order to save space for the actual Android/iPhone version, it's the regular cut that they use as a basis, and not the complete version. Beats the shit out of me, because the complete version not only has better visuals and special effects, but also some added scenes. Mind you, it's an intentional thing, again, mostly because they did use footage from the complete edition for one scene, and if you're thinking, if you're probably thinking about one, yes, it's the one that you're actually thinking right about now, but you'll be able to see by the time we get to it. Otherwise, it's the movie. We had commented on it a few years ago. There's not really much that can be really added, outside of the fact that, again, when it comes to the CGI, this is age still relatively better than Spirits Within, but I still argue Kingsglaive so far is, the one that still looks good, even now that he's almost 10 years old, if not more.
So, welcome to our pseudo-generations commentary of Advent Children.
Again, to an extent. Again, there's not, more much to add, because, again, we already comment on everything that needed to be told. The only thing that you need to know is that, again, we're using the Japanese dub as a template. Mind you, again, you're not really losing that much, because the translation for the first movie was almost one-to-one. It had some occasional bits here and there, like some characters' exclamation. Notably, there was that scene that I mentioned, where Denzel is trying to rush against one of the monsters that Kadaj created, and in the Japanese dub, he says Yamero, which means stop it, cut it out. In the English dub, because they wanted to be extra edgy, he says son of a bitch. And in my country sub, for that specific scene, regardless of the dub, instead says you're finished. Again, I need to ask Square, which version is it? So
I love how she says, "Oh yeah, sure. Shenra were draining the earth anyway." Like, I get it that she's a kid, but just the way she so nonchalantly passes over to, "Oh yeah, by the way, there was this madman who just happens to be the main villain of the plot," is so...
Well, also remember, she was exposed pretty much since she was little to Barrett, and the teachings on planetology. So methinks, Marlene had a lot of priorities dictated to that.
Ironic, wouldn't it be, that the main plot was actually just a side plot to her?
Also, I love that they did not showcase the shot where the party launches themselves against Sephiroth, because if you recall, as I mentioned, in the base version of the movie, they had Kate Sif not writing the Booglebot. They had to add that in the complete edition.
Oops.
So this is the movie where we barely see Red 13 because they couldn't render him properly.
Yes, because they found this fur, difficult to animate.
We barely got to see any member from the old party who wasn't basically Cloud, Tifa, or Aerith.
But even so, in the climax fight against Bahamut scene, they did some stuff, again, outside of Casey, because the makers of the movie thought that it but I guess, his Googlebot style wouldn't look too silly for this movie, or the fighting style that they wanted to do, and I still call bullshit on that. Again, Rebirth, the remake saga, is very a testament to say that, Kate Sith, even if it looked super silly, still could have worked even in the new context that they applied to the trilogy.
So I guess this kind of slightly addresses one thing I've always been wondering regarding the remake project of Seven. Like, what might they do essentially when they're done with the main story of Seven? Like, might
Maybe
they
just stop
revisit
there.
Adventure?
Again, Job,
Might
I
they
have no
revisit
idea. I have no idea why do you keep having this thought that they're gonna, remake every single part of it instead of just the OG.
Well, because one, Square like money, and Seven's easy money for them, and two, though,
I want
given
to
that
remind
the
you, Jova, that out of the development team, only one of the directors did express some desire, in how the project. While everyone else was basically telling interviews that
Oh,
they're
wait,
so
hold
glad
on.
that it's almost over.
Get it? There's a wolf by the sword, cause Cloud's a lone wolf, and he's on his motorcycle
Hello,
Fenrir.
Moto.
Just wanted to mention that because it's so subtle, you might miss it.
Yeah. Honestly, okay. But then again, I don't think real life product placement would make sense in this kind of movie, is it?
Talk though, what's a wolf doing out in the desert? It would make more sense for a coyote to be there.
Wait, big brother. But I
Aniki,
don't see the
yes.
ridiculous tasks you have to do.
It's Big
You're
Brother
even
is
in a
making.
house.
Still, one thing we really didn't mention, I think, in the original commentary, the reason why Kadaj, Loz and Yazoo act in these kind of uncharacteristic ways, because they mentioned that in the intro, and I think when we did the commentary, we kind of skipped over it. They are not, regular human beings. They technically are in terms of existing and being flesh and blood, but they spontaneously originated as, reincarnations of aspects of Sephiroth. Kadaj, again, is the more leader, as the leader quality to it, and if you notice, resembles slightly how Sephiroth looked in his youth. That was intentional. Yazoo is the more vain kind of the personality trait, and the one that wants to have have the pleasures of a fight. While Lotz instead is the more brutal one that wants to rejoice in the glory of combat nonetheless.
Ow.
I can't believe Cloud is dying of geostigma. Whee! In case you're
Shot my
wondering,
glasses off. What a dick.
again, in terms of not doing, in terms of doing the bare minimum for this event, you will think that you will have a section where Cloud fights some of these creatures as regular enemies, not even as a boss fight, but no, not really. You do get one type of encounter, well, technically two, but one original type of new encounter for the events of this movie, and that's kind of it.
It makes me wonder how the re-releases for like the old Pixar games are going to work out, because those also just used clips from the movies as their cutscenes.
If I had to speculate, we're really not gonna touch them, so they're gonna be crusty, because I was thinking, maybe they could use the advantage of having used the Blu-ray release for those cutscenes, but considering it's mostly ROMs that they're using, Shiroi, I get the idea we're gonna do only minimal work for them.
Okay, so they're still gonna look cramped as hell.
Yeah.
How much jurisdiction does Disney have over the ownership of those games?
I don't know, but it's more of a case also, Jova, about coding. It's not just as simple as deleting a file and introducing a new one, because it's it's kind of like when you're trying to fix an engine and accidentally you let the wrench slip into the engine. You potentially can cause more damage inadvertently.
Also, I love how, because this isn't a bridged version, they pretty much spoil outright that that's Rufus, even though in Advent Children, if I recall correctly, that was treated more as a surprise at
It's
first.
more like the beginning dialogue that he has with Cloud.
So in this movie, I don't really remember Advent Children that much, but Shibra's been reduced to just these two people and one house.
Well, technically,
how the mighty have fallen.
Rufus and the four Turks remaining: Tsang, Elena, Reno, and Rude. Because remember, Reeve just decided to fuck off, and in the just Cerberus we will get to know what he was doing, even though we kind of got a glimpse of that doing the Denzel OVA. Palmer is possibly dead, missing in action, nobody fucking knows. And Scarlet and Heidegger died in the Prod Clad. And
died on the way back to their home planet.
Hojo, you'll need to wait until we get to the just Cerberus. So I just say it's not simple.
Oh boy. Yeah, you'd think Hojo would have just been content dying at the end of 7, but no, he had to make it complicated.
Bitch, this is Square Enix.
True, yeah. He had the power of science and Square Enix on his side. Of course it was going to be complicated.
So, okay, here's my question. Since since you guys know I don't really watch Japanese versions of things a lot, the complaint that people had towards Advent Children and the compilation as a whole is that Cloud is barely more than just a massive mopey git.
Yeah,
that was a thing even in the Japanese stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
so
I was gonna say, was that mostly influenced by them watching the English version, or is the Japanese version the same?
No. It's just the way Cloud is written. I would still argue Takahiro Sakurai manages to balance out the depressed with still the stoic, because that's supposed to be the Cloud shtick, because that is reflected in all the appearances the Cloud had in other games like Kingdom Hearts 2 and of course Dissidia, while Steve Burton was directed to mostly just, being, for lack of a better term, depressed. Much, again, I think we mentioned, it's kind of like similar to Jason Griffith, but he was getting better with each passing year, and by the time of Dissidia and T, he was kind of finally getting into the groove. Again, helped by Cloud, this characterization was kind of being reset. So I wouldn't have minded too much to at least for him to give it a try for the remake. But like I said, Cody Christians is better anyway, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, like, without a doubt. Let me put it like this, Twibs. See, Cloud being a downer was something that, okay, yes, he was a downer at points in 7, but what people tend to forget is that he could be upbeat. And as much as he tried to act cool, deep down he was a nerd who was trying to look cool.
Yeah, because I think the same thing kind of happened different, albeit to a different extent with Aerith, because
where they make
people the opposite.
The same.
Yeah. People, it's like the people that made this movie, who were oddly enough the same people who made 7, just took the whole purity of Aerith and just made that a whole character. And the only reason why none of the other characters got flanderized like that was because they were barely in the compilation long enough.
Well, don't worry.
Actually, Sephiroth also got flanderized.
No, remember, there was even minimally for stuff like Barrett, for, his oil company and everything. Like, Yuffie, of all people, is one that actually got unscathed for the most part out of this ordeal. Like,
when it comes to Sephiroth and Cloud and Aerith getting flanderized, a lot of that seems to have started from Kingdom Hearts, where infamously they did not include Vincent and just gave his outfit to Cloud because someone thought that Cloud and Vincent were too similar, being both Debbie Downers, which is just sacrilege.
They also had his Buster Sword covered in bandages to represent his grief over the companions he lost when these were fell into darkness, but that was
so
dumb.
Yeah, now it's starting to come back. This is just Count Sephiroth.
Yeah, well, literally, lives again. Kadaj, the leader of the trio. Yeah, let's get to Tifa and Marlene.
Ah.
Gio,
Now we have door opening jump scare.
So, Tia, ignoring that this is a blatant abridged take, would you say the pacing is still somehow better off than Advent Children itself?
To an extent, because mostly we cut away stuff that raised the continuity, plot holes. As in, we cut away some stupid scenes like Cloud moping and Tifa telling him Zuru 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 or Dilly Dally Shilly Shally. And also other stuff like Kadaj, Loz and Yazoo stealing people from Edge on their dinky vehicle, which instead raised the question on how did they got over the ocean to get to the Forgotten Capital. Also, I know what you're thinking. Oh, good, this is actually a good setup. We're having a solo duel with Tifa against, Loz, so we're having a boss fight with him, right? Nope. That's not the original encounter that you get. Well, honestly, Jova, you argue it could have worked out for a single boss fight.
Oh, it could have. It's just that I get the feeling it would have been one of those you're scripted to lose boss fights, given how the sequence goes in the movie.
I've seen other instances from this game alone where it's more of a case where you have the fight, and then the rest of the cutscene play implying that the fight was just, you fighting in the middle of it.
I'm sorry to say, Shuri, but you unfortunately will not get the opportunity to recite Tifa's iconic dilly-dally shilly-shally line.
Oh,
That's
no.
okay.
It's so terrible.
Continue, Theo.
No.
But no, I think I mentioned that Tifa's new costume is probably the one that I have, more tolerance towards outside of Sid's, and to an extent Yuffie's. Mostly because Tifa already had, black and white on her costume over. It's just that I wish there was some red, because, again, go back to what I said about in the original movie's commentary about what colors do you think immediately when you remember one of the characters from the OG. In the case of Cloud, like I said, purple of uniform, brown of the belt and boots, and the blonde of his hair. When it comes to Tifa, what do you remember? The white of her tank top, the red, the black of the skirt, and the red of both her shoes and her eyes. Again, great balance for that. But in this costume instead, it's mostly just about the black and white, and you barely see her eye color, because again, this movie hates saturation.
Now, if I recall correctly, part of why they made so many of the characters wear black in Advent Children was to give sort of a bit of a funeral motif, because a lot of them wore armbands in remembrance of Aerith and all that.
Also, because the Matrix was still popular.
Okay. It's funny also because, you go from Kingdom Hearts, where the Final Fantasy characters for the most part have it, but of course by Kingdom Hearts 2, which I love that game, but it does have its issues, all the 7 characters go to their Advent fits, basically.
Alright, of course, we needed to keep the scene where Kadaj's pieces in the, girl bathwater, pool that Aerith was standing in.
Yeah, is Aerith's corpse still in there?
It's been 2 years, so hopefully it has been decomposed.
You're drinking dead person.
Don't you see, Dweebs? It's symbolic. It's kind of sort of like baptism, even if baptism doesn't require for the person in question to drink the water.
You have to drink the water.
You see, it's a Calvinist thing. It's a sub-branch.
Reminder, Dwibs, originally Sephiroth and Aerith were supposed to be siblings, hence why they have the same hairdo.
Also, don't expect...
Hey kids, let's try out the necrophiliac water. Also,
don't worry, one disadvantage that this cut actually has, technically speaking, is that Denzel has somehow even less of a character than in the original movie, and if you noticed, even in the original, his character was pretty much non-existent. And as I mentioned, even after this movie, he barely is a thing in... I don't think it's only briefly mentioned. Oh, someone plays Hillsong. In Digital Cerberus, and remember, after Digital Cerberus, the timeline kind of stops. So whatever plans they might have had for Denzel, they just stop with that.
Why do I get the feeling Denzel was just included so that we could do the rule of 3?
Also, because they wanted to have a potential, child figure that Cloud and Tifa could be taken care of without them actually having a child on their own, since only 2 years had passed. And to that I say, I reply with, Final Fantasy IV, the after years took its premise to have it set quite a bit of time after the original, and have Ceci and Rosa actually bang. So what's your excuse?
I really do. Part of me feels like Advent Children really was just made on vibes and a fever dream half the time.
It also has, again, my general theory for a movie for this, which, if you recall, I mentioned that one of the things that I detested more about Advent Children is the fact that they have Cloud and Tifa in these have they not kind of situation where by the end of 7 it was kind of sort of clear that they were going to be getting together. And I argue it's more of a case of the time where a lot of products that were aimed to younger crowd had the idea, not that it was any fundament into it, but they could not actually show characters engage in a romantic view, because otherwise it would have felt like, one, aging the characters too much, or b, felt inappropriate for the younger crowd in question, which of course it's bullshit. And yeah, it's the regular version, because Vincent's detail on the cape really sucks. It's just a blob.
Hey, Spawn. Like, that was a Spawn shot right there with how his cape just warped in.
Considering Shadow the Hedgehog was apparently inspired by Spawn, according to, interviews with Sonic Team, I wouldn't be too surprised. Oh, someone's playing Marvel Rivals instead. Wouldn't be too surprised if, Vincent was to... Remember, originally, Vincent was supposed to be the protagonist, believe it or not, because the story originally was set in a more realistic world. I don't remember if it was supposed to actually be on Earth, but something like that. And Vincent was supposed to play a detective that was resolving a case inside Midgar. That premise got recycled instead for Parasite Eve, which kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Also, isn't it just fitting that Vincent was just the one character who said, no, my design's too cool to change for this movie?
Well, remember, they mentioned that in interviews that their justification was that Vincent is a person so out of time that he will feel that his costume is just fine, needed any updates. Which I find hilarious in hindsight, because, as I mentioned, the moment he shows up, it feels like the movie is having a genuine breath of fresh air in its visual, even if, as you can see, it's still a bit desaturated.
And ironically, while yes, people do for the most part love the Advent Children designs, I think a lot of people can agree that the Advent Children designs are more dated than their original designs.
It's more a testament on how the designs of the original artwork for Tetsuya Nomura still work very well, even in the context of the more photorealistic designs. And again, the remake saga is another testament of that.
So here we are, the magical scene where Vincent and Marlene basically tell Cloud, hey, stop being a Debbie Downer. Which, look, I wouldn't dislike Advent Children making Cloud a Debbie Downer too much, because, look, the man had geostigma. As far as he knew, he was dying, so I could get him being depressed. No, the problem is that Advent Children left such a lasting impression of Cloud as just a Debbie Downer who can't seem to realize.
It doesn't even want to fight. Like his entire story arc in the
Oh wait, never mind. It's Arif
who...
I forgot about that, and it's Arif who says it here. Weirdly enough.
Arif.
So that's Tifa's.
Well,
this is the Japanese version too.
Well, remember this. The original had this other catchphrase was called Zuru 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 Zuru, but was such a specific way of saying that the people who were translating the movie had no fucking idea how to convey it.
Arif, why did you take Tifa's casual catchphrase?
No, personally, I would have just left the original and play up on the phonetic, quality to it. The idea that it's not what the person is saying, but more like have it kind of like a lullaby. But what do I know?
It's kind of sad seeing how much better, well drawn up, and pretty much summarized the plot of Advent Children is in this
Without all
event
the
than the
fluff,
actual movie itself.
It's almost like the original concept for this movie was a 20-minute fight scene that got stretched beyond belief.
Oh yeah, that's right. They made Sephiroth's Smash trailer into a whole movie. But yeah, no, for those who don't know, Advent Children was basically just supposed to be a short video about Sephiroth coming back from the dead and Cloud fighting him. Basically, the big fight scene between him, which
Kadaj
pretty much lasts the entirety.
Conceived originally, so I get the idea was that Kadaj arrives, fight with him, turns into Sephiroth, fight with Sephiroth, the end. So Loz and Yazoo were, programmed later, basically.
It's just, I guess at some point it grew and grew. I forget if it was because 7 was just so popular. I mean, they were making a whole franchise around it anyway at the time. Which is also part of why I do wonder if they're going to basically try and do another 7 franchise because, hey, remake and everything, and, they seem to be living and breathing 7 stuff between First Soldier, Ever Crisis, the merchandise, and everything.
Alright, much like again in the movie, it's time for the supposed cool moment. Again, we have been ignoring most materials from the original game, so instead what we're gonna do is to do the summoning. So again, are we doing, Ramu, Shiva, Ifrit, maybe the Knights of a Round or anything? No, what Kadaj is doing is combine his own monster-creating energy with the Bahamut summoning material to create the monstrosity that is Bahamut scene. And I get the idea in theory, but the movie is already with so little callbacks from the original, but introducing just a new form of Bahamut for it just alienates even more the audience.
I mean,
it's not even that good looking.
I kind of get why they did it though. Like Bahamut's like their safest bet because Dragon, those are massive in Japan.
Yeah,
this
is
this is our fight bit.
Yeah, it's Bahamut scene.
Yeah. I was literally gonna say, but this kind of cut it a little bit. But Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. It's got to be one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, like you said, Man of Steel. So
it's very much a product of its time.
I got the costumes for Cloud, Tifa, and Yuffie. Believe it or not, young Sephiroth did get a costume based on Kadaj, which kind of really fits. But in the meantime, for some reason, they had to release a rapper costume for Kate Sif. So of course I got
Kate Sif spouting African vernacular is not something I'm sure I'm ready for.
It's that the skit from Kadikarus when he gets the crash bandana. Yo, peep peep cheerio, you skank ass bitch.
Oh my god. So let me get this straight. So we get the fight with Bahamut Sin, but we don't get the scene showing, the cast of 7 showing up to set up for it. It's just, here it is. Now your characters are there to fight it. Even though the last scene we saw suggested that Cloud's off a distance before we can deal with that.
I will say, well, the costume translates really well in the game, so good job on the team for managing to create the models for them.
Oh, hi, Barrett.
Yeah, I was going to say...
in fishnets.
Yes, sure.
I was going to say before Dwibs brought it up, but we go from, a lot of gray to a considerably more colorful battlefield.
Yeah.
Yes, it says something when Vincent is one of the more colorful characters in the movie.
Like you said, Sid also is fine for the most part. It's just that his costume lacks details. Again, one of the easiest cosplays to make, and it was shown even in my country. People cosplaying as him were super common in the late 2000s.
His outfit basically just seems to be a recolor of his outfit from Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Didn't he have a turtleneck in Kingdom Hearts?
No.
Oh,
he also has
a
a white short sleeve shirt in that one. I think he had the jacket wrapped around his waist too there, but don't quote me. Let me check.
It's been a while, admittedly.
Yes, it has. He does not have the jacket wrapped around, but he does have a giant tan, something around his waist. Let me just link this to you.
Okay.
Oh shit! I forgot. That's Barrett.
Yeah, his costume
Again,
really
Wow,
sucks.
he managed to get 10 years younger and only like 2.
Okay,
Wait, another phase?
It's kind of, well, because now you're fighting it just with Cloud. At least that's what they wanted to convey with it. Also because you get Divinity as your battle theme. I do like it, because normally you just get that awful remix for those who fight Fervor. Yeah, I didn't talk about that, what was going on with the fight, but I still really don't like it. While instead the Divinity round 2 really fits more with the fight against Bahamut scene.
Like, I'm sorry, but the transitions into these gameplay sequences don't feel as fluid as they could have made them. Like, since each one implies that the hero just shows up rather than, showing the scene where they show up before fighting
someone's playing Balasco.
Oh, nice. But, interestingly enough, I see that they did bring over Barrett's weapon from the movie.
Yes,
not his outfit.
it's the free weapon that you do get by completing the event, basically. Like I said, they do put like one of those as like a consolation prize to incentivize you to play regularly. Just for the appearance.
You had to roll for the fusion sword and Cloud's
Yes,
Advent Children,
of
right?
course, like Jenova, they wouldn't want to waste the opportunity for people to potentially pay for it.
Like, again, I'll say this. As somebody who kind of did want Cloud to have his own unique look, since it turns out, while it is his more iconic look, technically his iconic look is essentially a soldier uniform, so I get why he distanced himself from it. I just wish we could have gone with something unique, but also something that's not just...
I do believe, as I mentioned, when it comes to the simple clothing, the substance of the cloth, that's actually fine, the different balance, the asymmetry to it, but my god, have some variety in the colors. It's all fucking
Yes, I
black.
can agree. And again, I get it. Maybe it's black because of the grieving for everything, but it really just feels like something that was just in for the time as opposed to something that's timeless as a design.
I hate that so many people like it, even regardless of having more, critical thinking about it.
It's like, I get why people do like it. It's just, I do agree with your preferences that I wish it had more color to it. Which,
there's also
I guess to be...
There's also the ad, remember, he also has the badge, the badge of Fenrir attached to it, which continues to have the stupid wolf parallels that he never had up until this point.
Yeah. Can I talk about this also? I don't like how they made it a point that Cloud's a lone wolf, even though the point of the ending of 7 was that he had found community and teamwork among his friends. But no, according to Advent Children, he forgot all that because of Geostigma.
Only 2 years, huh? For reference, the novel, The Kid on the Way to a Smile, which serves to also partially bridge the gap in what's happening between the OG and Advent Children, showcases that Cloud is doing fine, nothing in particular that suggests that he might have, wanted to distance himself from his friends. It was just a case of everyone went their own way and only occasionally saw each other. The only two characters who were more consistently seeing each other were Red 13 and Vincent, due to their, condition that has Red 13 live a much longer life and Vincent being functionally immortal. Also, yeah, I can tell that it's the original version because Bahamut scene barely has any damage onto him.
It really boggles the mind why they
when did this
used
come out
the
again?
original.
The OG was mid-2000, I think 2004. Remember, it was presented 2 years in a row at the Movie Festival of Venice. So baffling.
Yeah, the complete version looks a lot
2005.
better.
Yeah, well, the complete version, I think it was 2009.
And here we see the moment of teamwork, which Cloud had to be reminded of for some reason.
Because
but yeah.
we're Final Fantasy heroes. Yeah, sure.
Again, it really feels like you can feel how they had to come up with every reason for there to be a conflict as they built this from a short into a movie. Because it really doesn't make sense for Cloud to have forgotten his lessons after 2 years and all that. Like, it says something that Vincent, who actually is supposed to be the Debbie Downer of the team, was one of the people who had to knock Cloud out of his funk.
Mind you, Job, according to what I read about when it comes to fan reception to the compilation, people had a bit of an issue because they felt Vincent was becoming more lighthearted as a character, and this gets a culmination in Dirge of Cerberus, where he's supposed to be the protagonist, and he arrives basically towards the end, where he literally has to work with also the power of teamwork and says, "Yeah, let's save the world." It's again kind of like Shadow the Hedgehog.
I actually don't hate it, since I see it as like development on Vincent's part.
Yeah.
Hey, the guy finally has his demons dealt with Hojo, well, as far as he knew at the time, dead, so it makes sense he would get better.
Yeah, I remember. I think I remember that one. So in this movie, literally the only person that sounded more dead inside than Cloud was Aerith, and I mean, it kind of makes sense since Aerith's dead. But even by those standards.
I really don't get why there are still shipping wars about, Cloud should be with Aerith instead of Tifa, even though Advent Children pretty much establishes that Aerith is content being with Zack, who, let's be honest, she was kind of projecting onto Cloud whenever they were dating, really.
I have something to say, but first, Waves, go on.
Yeah, I was more talking about the voice acting, because I don't remember being too impressed with either Cloud or Aerith.
It's funny, though, because my point kind of merges both of your arguments together, because unfortunately, because of shipping discourse, Brianna White received a lot of, harassment online, to the point where it was one of the two big catalysts that had Square Enix actually having to release a statement about them taking, more serious, consequences in case of further cases of harassment. The other case, if you can imagine, Shira, is what happened to poor Senna Breyer.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Also, I'm surprised Brianna.
Can people just be normal for 1 second? It's a game that's mostly famous for someone getting just stabbed through the chest and dilly-dally, shilly-shally. What?
People can't be normal.
A bit too seriously.
Sorry,
for some people, it's just too difficult for some reason.
Be normal in this economy.
Yeah,
can't afford to be normal.
And I've heard about the Cena Breyer one. Something tells me that had little to do with her acting.
Oh, no, it was just harassment, Waves. I have my own, take on how I feel about the delivery for the character, but that's really not an excuse to, harass a person, regardless of circumstances.
What's wrong with just saying I don't like the acting?
I'm aware it's probably
just the best case is possibly to ignore these people and let potentially, the parties involved to respond in according to the harassment.
Honestly, the crazy thing is that Brianna White has relatively a positive following as the voice of Aerith. So I know, every fan base is going to have that unfortunate
parasocial weirdos
minority, but yes, it's just kind of disappointing. And God, I hope it was. Well, it sucks whoever it was, but I'll be extra shocked if it was Cloud and Tifa shipper, since as far as I know, they're usually the more chill of the two shipping sides.
Don't know, and quite frankly, don't care, because again, the argument to begin with is, non-existent, as you yourself said.
Now, speaking of a fight that actually matters, it's time for the climatic showdown.
Now, you would think they would have the excuse for this to have a fight against the young Sephiroth using the Kadaj costume to mimic that a la Spirit in Smash Bros. No, not that either. I still find it so weird that Cloud uses finishing touch to conclude the fight.
Well, it is called finishing touch.
That's
I'll speak.
Go on.
Speaking of Smash, I'd argue Ultimate manages to give Cloud's Advent Children outfits some good color variants that actually help make it more interesting.
Well, those are palette swaps to begin with. You would have to expect some extravagant color combination out of those to begin with.
I think his lavender version of it actually works well because it feels like an evolution of his soldier outfit, but one that's truly his own rather than just, being black and dark. And here it
that was my
is.
lunch.
Yummers.
It's kind of a shame they cut out the scene where Reno fakes him out with that case. I kind of wish they'd kept that in.
Alas.
Here we go.
Again, the reason why this thing was made to begin with.
I like
And
to imagine
believe it or not, next part we will learn how Sephiroth can pull this trick off to an extent.
Let me guess, because every little bit of will, even in one of Jenova's own parts, now bends to him.
Okay, that we already know. I'm talking about the Masamune. Don't worry about it. For now.
Alright,
Masamune.
Okay, so let me get this straight. How come when they brought Sephiroth back from the dead, people were cheering like crazy, but when they brought Palpatine back from the dead, everyone was going like, why?
Okay, there is so much different context there, we don't even have time to go over it. I'll just say it right now, it makes more sense Sephiroth can do this out of the blue.
And I also argued with right after this, not necessarily for the movie itself, but right after this, people already immediately started having fatigue and were thinking, oh, we're gonna have to rely on Sephiroth every time to show up again for being a villain, which is basically the point of why Dirge of Cerberus was made. They wanted to have a story where Sephiroth had very little to no influence about as the main villain. Instead, the villains were a relatively new, unconnected threat.
I love it. Sephiroth's like, it's a shame your sickness isn't going to kill you in that. I can't use the planet as I wish.
Since they actually had the model of Sephiroth, they were like, why not?
There you go, Cloud. All you gotta do is beat him and then he becomes playable. Which probably makes this hilarious.
Funny you say that, because that kind of sorta is the method of unlocking. Complete the entire event and have one more fight against the Sephiroth to basically unlock him.
Just like what Smash Ultimate
Again,
did. You want Sephiroth early, beat him.
As a reminder, this is still supposed to be the second anniversary event. Yeah, I don't blame you if you haven't forgotten already about it.
And then in the...
Which? It's the possibly the lamest thing about it, the fact that they wasted, quote-unquote, an event instead of having a celebration, just having the occasion for the entire thing. I get the thought process of, oh, the surprise is that you get all of these at once instead of in pieces, but like...
And then...
Gone.
And then, from the heavens, Cloud hears in his head, Cloud, is it just me or is this fight a bit too easy?
Because again,
he wants to be your friend so bad.
Remember, we're operating on the logic that they want people who just play here for the story to have an easier time to, complete the event without having to grind too much. We still require a minimum amount of effort, but nowadays not as much as it used to be.
Speaking of Smash from earlier, say what you will about this rendition of the theme, but they used it masterfully in that Smash reveal trailer.
I still really don't like the new lyrics.
I will say this, I like this version, even if I find the fact that they added in flipping metal a little weird, but I feel like it works. Lord knows it works better than a lot of other remixes and Advent Children did.
I get why they had to change the lyrics. They wanted to have the idea of, oh, this is, the new occasion why Sephiroth rises, so this is reflected into that, and why Cloud wants to defeat him and everything. The whole theme about memory and him wanting to sell you pairs, or as he tells you, try to give you this pair. But no, to me it just doesn't work. Like, one recent remix that happened was for Dissidia Duello, which is kind of hysterical because of the way the game is structured, the matches need to be like less than 5 minutes long. They had to basically compress a bit of the music so that it can loop 2 times at least. So That means compressing one Wicked Angel in 2 minutes and a half. Did they pull it off? Yes, actually, believe it or not. Not only that, but in to flex, they merged it also with the Jenova battle theme, and it works.
You know, that being said, though, can I just ask, what was Yoko Shimomura smoking when she did her renditions of One Weekend Angel? I don't think they're
What do you mean,
bad.
the original synth or the one for the HD version?
Okay, basically the melodies in general. Like, well, okay, even for the original synth or HD remakes,
I mean,
they both have the problem that they
it's-
arguably cut out too much
Yes,
of it,
it's the it technically is as the same instrumentation. It just unfortunately cuts out again the middle part, the one part that I actually like. For reason that escape me, they keep cutting that.
And it's like, it's not even like the battle goes by so quickly that you'd miss out on it. Sephiroth fights in Kingdom
In
Hearts
both games,
tend to take a while. So yeah, like, why not go full hog?
Not to mention, for the Western release, she bothered to record almost the entirety of Night on Bald Mountain for the fight against Chernabog. So there really wasn't any excuse.
Quality assurance was on holiday, I guess.
Oh, by the way, I
Again-
bothered to look back to Dirge of Cerberus because for checking the different some different shots. A lot of the damage inflicted to the Shinra building in this fight is not really there by the time Dirge of Cerberus is, and all of the building is still intact. So
If I recall correctly, I think Dirge of Cerberus was being made around the same time, so they didn't get all the full notes.
Possible. For reference, in-universe is set 1 year after this fight, and Midgard was deemed uninhabitable, meaning that they were not going to be able to rebuild in the first place.
Wow, that's kind of depressing, given that they were trying to rebuild the place.
Well, they created the city of Edge, quote-unquote, in the outskirts,
What a name.
as a new place to live by. That's why
Sure,
they
did I
have
mention that it was made in the 2000s?
Again, the way it was called like that because it was at the edge of the city.
Yeah, I was about to say, but like thinking of it's funnier this way.
Yeah, it's still funny. It's kind of like how a lot of cities in the real world have strange names that have sexual innuendos and stuff like that.
Oh, the UK has plenty of those.
Yeah, you told me something like some people say cockamouth or something.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yes, we did have to most of the fight with Sephiroth because again they knew what was the money shot. So
I know you mentioned that they included one scene from Complete, and I'm worried I
it's
know
the one that
what
you're
it
thinking.
is.
It really is the one that you're thinking because they just couldn't leave that alone.
Fine, you want to do that, fine, but then just use Complete then.
Yeah, just again the theorizing that my friend had was just for the case of saving space, but even then I argue it's still fallible because all they had to do was just to have the file size not be as big in the mobile version. So no idea what happened here. Then again, remember, this is still the same development team, but for some reason, when there was the visual novel event, instead of having the traditional visual novel stuff, just had massive video files that went in automatic. Also, yes, on higher degrees of the fight, Sephiroth opens up with Heartless Angel, which, if you forgot, is a movie that he borrowed from Kefka and reduces your HP to 1.
Also, I love how the gameplay works, you got like these cutscenes of Cloud and Sephiroth flying from building to building, chasing after each other, and then they're like at some point, okay, let's stop here and actually just fight.
They're just on like the third floor of a building.
And you're about to see, that's kind of what happens towards the end of the fight itself, Jenova. If anything, it's kind of accurate.
Oh, true, but it's just funny to imagine they have to pause to do that every now and then, given how, you go between the cutscenes and then go to the actual gameplay sequence.
The rest of it really is just theatrics, isn't it?
Theatrics for the audience. Actually on the level for results.
Okay, Sephiroth, are you going to now sell me? Are you going to sell me the ramen? So yes, they had to keep the scene where Zack cheers up Cloud in the incomplete version.
Ryder's pet.
Jesus.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. despite what some might think, I don't even dislike Zack. I just dislike how he's been so shoehorned and has been used to make it seem like Cloud is useless without him.
Like,
even though
again,
even attack my spiky hair.
Again, what the scene really conveys is that, oh no, I can't beat the Ghost of the Past without my BFF Zack, Ghost telling me what to do.
It would be more fitting to have like something from Tifa.
Or Aerith, if you really need to have that dad speaking.
It's like, for all intents and purposes, Cloud.
Hell, even Barrett at that point, if we're going
like
that
a lot
route.
of people. A lot of people tend to forget Cloud surpassed Cloud surpassed both Sephiroth and Zack, essentially. It wasn't Zack who defeated Sephiroth back in the day, it was Cloud.
Also, thinking about it, one wing isn't very aerodynamic.
It's stylistic theory. Shut up.
And look at that. Cloud holds a dying Sephiroth his arms.
Someone is playing Helldivers too.
How's that for some toxic
Wow.
yaoi?
Either that or Cloud's crying because someone's playing Helldivers.
I would like
too.
to remind you, Jenova, that Kadaj was literally born like yesterday, so I retract your statement big time. Yeah, I just wanted to be a real boy like Pinocchio, whatever.
That's why I tried to kill everyone, and why I unleashed a dragon on everyone. Wait, I'm kind of an asshole in hindsight.
I was just going to say, Joe, oh yeah, remember that scene in the Disney version of Pinocchio where he just went crazy and killed everybody?
I'm pretty sure there is an adaptation in comic form where he does that.
Or is that going to be an upcoming horror movie?
Yeah, the Twisted Fairy Tale saga from the game made Winnie the Pooh, Love and Honey.
Are we gonna have a second year of Pinocchio one day?
Oh, okay. If I recall correctly, the Asylum actually made an Avengers Grimm movie, which, yes, is basically a pastiche of fairy tales and the Avengers. And if I recall correctly, Pinocchio might actually be a bad guy in that thing.
So yeah, if I recall correctly, they also skip the scene at the church. They just have these Fatal White and Aerith and Zack overseeing things. So
I'm not alone. You're not anymore.
In this version, you barely see Red 13.
Do we even get to? Wait,
I didn't even realize he was here.
Hold on, we don't even get the ending bit with like the photo with everyone taken together. It's just Aerith leaving off to be with her man and bang each other in the afterlife.
I get the idea we wanted again to trim the fat, but I also kind of missed the scene where Yuffie is just saying stupid shit and Casey tells her to fuck off.
I'm conflicted. On the one hand, this does summarize
remember this fight from the end of episode 1 of the First Soldier and how tedious it was? It has made it a point to showcase how more busted the adult Sephiroth is now, to have you the same identical fight with the same parameters, but now Sephiroth is about to basically mop the floor.
One shot the fucker.
So this means we can effectively bring adult Sephiroth into missions when you think about it.
Yeah, but it's just not canonical for the story that is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Still, I'm now having a funny image of Sephiroth. Sorry.
One of his gimmicks, as mentioned, is the tuning. You might have noticed the rolls that I mentioned a few parts ago. For Sephiroth, he's attacker, but the thing is that when you do the tuning, all of these abilities, all of them, require only one segment of the ATB bar to actually be activated, and he becomes virtually invincible for as long as it endures. So you essentially get basically full-on Mario Bros. Style invisibility superstar. Insane.
So,
go on, Joe.
I now have the funny image of Sephiroth, now having seen the error of his ways, coming back in time, and now helping Cloud and company defeat his older evil self.
I swear to God, if Revelation has that as the payoff, I'm gonna held you responsible for it.
I mean, let's be honest. It's what we've been speculating on for a while. What with, Ever Crisis hinting at Sephiroth in the good old days, showing Sephiroth's more heroic side, and not to mention the big speculation people had ever since the start, when it turned out that remake is technically a sequel rather than a remake. The idea that this Sephiroth we're dealing with is actually Genesis after the end of Dirge of Cerberus, since That's still a potential thing, and with time travel being a thing, who knows what's going on at this point? Would you tell me this? Would you honestly be shocked if it turns out we get a redeemed Sephiroth by the end of Revelations?
This man is unfixable.
Yeah.
Are we gonna maybe a you know how that Twilight book that got released where it's just basically the whole story but from Edward's perspective? Could you imagine if it did like a version of Final Fantasy VII entirely from Sephiroth's perspective?
I'm honestly
like
surprised
I said,
we haven't gotten one of those.
I really think that should have been the original concept for Crisis Core, having
gonna-
the Sephiroth story instead of the Zack story. There you go.
Lovely. So, I'm guessing...
Lance Bass, I mean,
Yes, I still love the fact that it is officially in the history records that Sephiroth was at some point a member of
So
NSYNC.
you're telling me Dweebs that he's gonna say to the behemoth bye 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 bye.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, either that or all you had to do to defeat Sephiroth is shine a green crystal at him.
So yeah, and
Let's
you
be
get
honest.
for the title Geostigma. More like Stigma Balls.
Let's be honest, though, like, Sephiroth totally looks like he would fit in a boy band of the 2000s.
Oh, 100%.
Alright, that was kinda lame, unfortunately, but...
I was gonna say, that was a hot mess.
Yeah.
That was
Say
a
what?
second anniversary of this game.
Believe it or not,
Well,
for a while I did contemplate potentially not even recording that because I did not think, just the Valmut scene fight would have been worth a while, but I had to try to squeeze as much as I could out of this. So anyway,
plus side, it was a nice look for us to get to revisit Admin Children in
Yeah.
some shape or form.
next part, more interesting things are afoot because we have the final chapter of, the beginning of the end to an extent, and the final chapter of The First Soldier Episode 2, aka Sephiroth finally getting that fucking Masamune. See you for that.
Beautiful.
See ya.
Ta-ra.
See you then.